What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 19. We're going to call this the Torian Washington episode
Wow.
of the Coach and the Couch Potato.
Throwback.
That's going to be the new thing. Every episode, we're going to just throw out a random guy that wore the number.
Yeah.
So, as always, I'm Jeremy, the Couch Potato. Opposite side of the screen, we got Coach Slate. We got another pretty low-key episode for you guys. Coach Slate's going to recap a pretty awesome experience that he had this week that I'm excited to hear in depth about. Talk about the portal, LSU had an ad, a little bit of recruiting updates, and maybe get into some NFL schedule stuff. But before we jump in, how was your week?
It was good, man. It was it's a bittersweet week. You know, it was the last week of actual school. We have exams next week. And so some of the kids have finally figured out that I won't be coming back next year. And it's been funny because I've gotten some choice words thrown at me by some kids out of frustration, but it's crazy, man. End of one chapter, beginning another one. So just kind of really taking it all in. The wife was out of town this weekend, so it was, daddy duty full force with the three girls. Shout out to my parents and my in-laws. They were obviously a huge help. Baby had double ear infection this weekend.
Ooh.
So I'm getting a little long-winded here, but so Friday my wife leaves to go to Pittsburgh. They do an annual sisters trip. So each year they go to some random festival, right? That you wouldn't ever think of going to. So this year they decided to go to the Mac and Cheese Festival in Pittsburgh.
Wife had this coming up in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, there you go. My wife had a blast. So they all had a good time. Well, on Friday, my mom watches the baby and she texts me and she said, "Hey, I don't think the baby feels good. I took her temperature. She's got 100 fever. You might just want to call the doctor, see if you can get her in." So we ended up taking her to the Ohio Health Urgent Care. Double ear infection. All right. Ear infections in our family, it's just it's nonstop. So double ear infection, and she's got pink eye. So it's oh my gosh. So I'm telling my mom, do not tell Erin, because Erin's on her way to Pittsburgh. She will have a conniption and yell and tell them to turn around the car. I'm going home to get my baby. So I'm I got it taken care of. I rushed home from work. My mom took her to urgent care. We get her the meds, get her fever down. I'm look at dad taking care of business. Heck yeah. Wife doesn't know. Well, Ohio Health sends text updates.
Good old My Chart.
And so my wife gets a My Chart update for the post-visit summary on Eva Slater. And my wife calls me "What the heck's going on? What is going on? Why is the baby at the doctor?" And I'm "Oh my gosh." I was "What are you?" I tried to play it off. "What are you talking about? She's not at the doctor." What? She's "I just got an update. Said she got a double ear infection, blah, 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 blah." I'm "It's okay. Everything's okay. Got to take care of." So I thought I was being slick and I got caught up. So it was, it was pretty funny. But yeah, man, it's been a good week, good weekend, man. How about yourself?
That's awesome. Good week. Low-key, celebrated birthday 41 on Friday.
Wow.
Had a doctor's appointment on Tuesday and got some eye-opening in a good way news.
Okay. All right. Good.
I'm a pretty private person, but you know what? We're going to throw it out there.
All right.
In 7 weeks, your boy's down 31 pounds.
Attaboy.
So that was pretty cool to see.
That's awesome, man.
So we're working towards some more changes. We haven't gone all in because that's when you fail.
Yeah.
So good week.
That's phenomenal.
Got some yard stuff done yesterday. The wife and I did, and shout out her. She went and mowed today. The guy that mows my grass has been, kind of behind with the weather, and so she went out and mowed today after working 8 hours. So shout out her.
Sabrina's the goat, man. She's
the
goat.
One thing you didn't hit on that you encountered this week, though, and I'm excited to hear more about this. The guy we're both pretty high on. You got to spend some time with Coach Lock.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's obviously we've been fortunate to have some guys come through Findlay, and our head coach is, Stephen Adams. I can't gas him up enough, man. He is phenomenal at what he does. And I'll be completely transparent, man. I think he could be like a big time D1 running back coach at like the highest level. I mean, he is elite when it comes to that. And so he didn't know Coach Locke was coming. And so that's one of the things that I want to hit on here in a second. He didn't know Coach Locke was coming. So he gets a phone call that he's got a visitor. It's, Coach Locklyn from Ohio State. So he like kind of drops everything that he's doing and he goes and catches up with him. And he hits me up and he's like, hey, like, I know you're in class right now, but Coach Locklyn's here. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to go meet this guy. I gotta meet the walk-on coach. Like I can't not meet him. And so my planning period comes up and Coach Locke was actually getting ready to leave. I go downstairs and I catch him in the hallway. And, I thought it was just going to be like a quick, like handshake. How you doing? Nice to meet you. Welcome to Ohio, blah, 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 blah. And then it turns into like a 30-minute clinic in the middle of the hallway, just talking running backs, talking defense, talking technique, like kids walking by us, laughing at us, like, look at these weirdos. Like I'm sure if there's like a security camera up there, like full-fledged demonstrations of like drills and different things. Like it was like a coach's like dream, you know what I mean? And so, but yeah, it was pretty cool. Coach Locke himself, man, his story, I mean, I'm sure most of you guys know now that listen to us, but this is a guy who was a high school coach for a very long time, and in Memphis, Tennessee, felt compelled or called to go do something at the college level. And he was like, straight up, Coach Slate, I just showed up to Memphis. They had no idea who I was. They didn't know anything about me. I approached somebody there that worked there that, I asked if I could get into the weight room session every now and then. And they said, yeah, sure. It won't be a problem. And I just started showing up every single day. And he said, Coach Norvell, who was the head coach at Memphis at the time, came down into the weight room and he sees like this big jacked, guy who's decked out in this Memphis stuff. And he's like, who's that? And the strength coach says, oh, I thought you knew who this was. This guy's been showing up every day for like the last month. And we have no idea who he is, but he's great. He helps out the kids. He does a phenomenal job. And he was like, well, if he's an asset, let's make him a volunteer coach so he can be here and help us out in the weight room. And that's how he got started at the college level. Like he legitimately, when he says walk on, like he figured like literally means I walked into the weight room and said, hey, here I am. And he just kind of stuck. And, the coolest thing about meeting him was he's just a high school coach, man. You could tell by the way he interacts with all the coaches. You could tell by the way he was talking to Stefan and I. Like he truly feels like he's one of us. He doesn't feel like he's up here. I'm at Ohio State. I was at Oregon. I was at Florida State. Like, no, you're a coach. I don't care what level. This is how we can help each other get better. And so he really spent a lot of time pouring into Stefan and pouring into myself over different things that we could do to help out the teams that we're going to be on, the programs and different things. We talked about specific defensive stuff for a very long time. And it was very evident why he's been such a commodity, because he's easy to relate to. I felt comfortable around him within 2 minutes of getting to know him. Like I felt like I was talking to one of my guys, and he kind of briefly touched on the recruiting strategy stuff. And, he was just mind blown at the fact that, some of the guys have not, like in Ohio, have gotten overlooked in the past few years. And he was like, Ohio is such a talent rich place. Like he's like trying to recruit all the Ohio running backs. Like he was just like, I'm trying to, I'm trying to cast the widest net possible so that I can get the best players. We got to keep these guys here that are in Ohio. I don't want them going anywhere else. And so I loved hearing that. He talked about Isaiah West for a little bit, and, he didn't mention him by name, but he talked about, the running back from St. Joe's. And he was just like, this kid's he's a stud, an absolute stud. And his dream school is Ohio State. And he said, that is the one thing that he didn't realize when he came here was how big of a national brand Ohio State is. He's like, I've been in Ohio. Obviously, everybody wants to be at Ohio State, but I've also been out in California recruiting. I've been in, on the West Coast, on the East Coast, down south, and everybody looks at Ohio State with such, lore. Like, this is one of the greatest programs ever. And so he was like, I was not aware of that. So all in all, man, it was pretty cool. I could totally see why Coach Day really coveted getting that guy here. And personally, I love the way that he's gone about his recruiting strategy. He's not, we've got our big fish like the Jordan Davidsons, the Bo Jacksons, and things like that. But he's also looking at the Isaiah West. He's also looking at Nino Hill up at Kent McKinley. He's also looking at some other running backs that are down in Tennessee, one in Virginia. He's making sure he's building those solid foundations because he understands we're not guaranteed to get everybody. As much as I want to get everybody, it's not guaranteed. So these relationships need to be solidified. And the one thing that he said, and I'll stop here, that it's really, stands out to me a ton. And he brought it up in his introductory press conference, how he thinks the running back position is the worst coach position in football. And he said, everybody gets wrapped up in these stars, 5-star, 4-star, everybody gets wrapped up in that stuff. And everybody just assumes that, okay, it doesn't matter who you are. You can be successful at this running back position if you've got those 5 stars in front of your name, if you've got those 4 stars in front of your name. He said, my job as a coach is to identify traits. He said, what traits does our offense need? And that's what I'm going to go recruit. And I'm going to go recruit the crap out of those traits. And then it's my job to not only develop those traits, but then to expound on the traits that they may be lacking. And he said, my job is to make a complete running back, but I'm focusing on traits. And so for me, and we've said that a million times on this episode, focus on, the traits, focus on what they can do. Don't focus on the stars. Like, it was refreshing to hear a coach at that prominent of a level say, like, this is what we are looking for. And this is why we're able to cast this wider net, because a lot of these kids get overlooked because they don't have the 5 stars in front of their name. And so I think Ohio State, man, with Coach Lock, it's a freaking home run. I hope they can keep him for as long as possible. I mean, that guy, he had me ready to play, and I haven't played football in years, and he had me ready to go. And so shout out to Coach Lock, man. He's really recruiting. I mean, he's just randomly popping up to schools all across Ohio, whether they have dudes or not. Like, he's just trying to build those genuine relationships. And I thought that was awesome to hear, man. So shout out to him. He's doing a great job.
That's awesome. Yeah, that that lines up with everything you've read about the guy.
Yeah.
We'll talk about some running back recruiting stuff here in a few. But he's definitely doing his diligence, and he's got a plan, I think.
Yeah.
And he's walking into a situation where it's hard enough to get one running back in a class, let alone 2, but we need 3.
Yeah, I know.
So before we hop into recruiting, just real quick, we did have a portal edition. We've added a few preferred walk-ons through the portal over the last week or two. But I think it was Friday. Keenan Nelson Jr.
Yeah.
Safety from South Carolina. Was a 22 kid, 4-star from St. Joseph Prep, where Marvin Harrison Jr. went. I think started 4 games, played in like 13. At this point, he's a depth guy. At both safety, and he can play nickel, though.
Yeah.
So, in that event, Jordan Hancock gets dinged up, and, you need to slot somebody else somewhere. You've got some depth there. You lost safeties in the portal, so you needed depth.
Yeah.
I think it's a good ad. Anytime you can bring a guy from a Power 5 school who has experience, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and I think the Buckeyes have made it clear, like, they knew they needed depth. You saw them going after the guy from Sacramento State. I know he ended up canceling his visit. You So I'm looking at the Jacoby Matthews guy from Texas A&M, and then they brought the guy in from Michigan State. I forget how to
Magnuson, who
yeah,
ended up in Ann
who
Arbor.
ended up at the team up north. But it was very evident that they felt the need to go attack the safety room, which I totally get. I think at the top, I think we're very good. I think at the middle to the bottom, we're unproven. And so to be able to go get a guy who may not be a starter this year, but will be able to develop within this scheme for a year and possibly slide into a role, or compete to be a starter, and over the next 2 years will be phenomenal. I think I really think he's a good player. If you look at him coming out of high school, he had offers from every big school you would want. And I know
State, Georgia,
yeah. And I know Penn State was one of the top choices where he was the crystal ball. A lot of people thought that's where he was going to go. And, say what you want about Penn State. They've had some really good defensive backs come through there over the last few years. And so to me, that goes to show that this guy's got talent. I love his versatility. I love the fact that he could play, that post safety. He can come down into the nickel as well. I think also adding depth at that nickel spot is huge because we don't know how Lorenzo Styles is going to recover from whatever shoulder injury he had. And I know he was really starting to come on, during the spring, and he got banged up and he had to have surgery. So we don't know how he's going to respond. And so it is nice to build some depth at that nickel spot as well. Obviously need that depth at safety. So, if we plan on playing 16 to 17 games, you have to have quality depth. And to be able to get somebody from the SEC, I've been fortunate enough, up at Findlay, they recruited our quarterback very well. And so they came in quite a bit. South Carolina did, their coaching staff, got to meet Coach Beamer, got to meet Dow Loggins, and they're a really good coaching staff. They know how to freaking coach football. Whether it translates into wins, we'll see. But, I know for a fact they had to be high on that kid. And, to pull him in over Georgia and Penn State, that speaks volumes to, he was coveted by a program. And so I'm excited about it. Anytime we can add a good defensive back, I'm never going to complain. And so we need that depth because Lathan Ransom, love him to death, and I think he's All-American potential. He's got to stay healthy. Malik Hartford, he will knock your block off. He's got to stay healthy. And so after that, with Jihad Carter leaving and things like that, like, you just don't know what you have. And so I'm glad the Buckeyes identified who they wanted and they went and got him, man. So I think he's going to be able to help us out, whether it's on special teams or, just adding that depth. So I think it's a good ad for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't talked recruiting in a minute for the class of 25. Kind of a couple big storylines this week, I guess you could say. On the Ohio State front, it's been expected for about a month. Blake Woodby decommits. It always seemed weird, as the commitments started to roll in and you look at what's still on the board, somebody's got to be the odd man out. And it sounds like, Oregon's a pretty big player, and we'll just go ahead and throw it out there. Oregon's coming in hot. I mean, they are coming in. If you're on Ohio State's board, either, recruited by Ohio State, committed to Ohio State, you're from the state of Ohio, Oregon's coming.
Yep.
They are what Miami has tried to be. We joke around about it with Miami and the running backs.
Yeah.
Well, not only is Oregon doing it with everybody, Oregon's got the money to do it.
Yes,
Uncle Phil ain't messing around.
He's not.
Now where I think things get interesting is, obviously, Oregon is the bread and butter to Phil on a personal level.
Yep.
But on the business level, how hard do you want to push Ohio State?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. That's a great question. Can you really blame Oregon for taking that, that mindset to recruiting? They're coming into the Big Ten, so their recruiting footprint is now the entire country.
Right.
It's now the entire country. And so, yeah, if Ohio State's going after these guys, like I'm going to go after them too. And we're able to say like, hey, we got Phil Knight and all these things. But like you said, do you want to continue to poke at the bear? You know what I mean? Do you want to get into that? Because if Ohio State gets the upper hand and starts, beating them every single year, like those guys that you're going to go after, you're going to start missing on them because they're going to see like, well, between the two, this is where I'm going to go. I'm going to go to Columbus. But I respect Danny. I Coach Lanning. I respect him. I love their recruiting strategy right now. I really do. I can't blame them for attacking it this way. You want to play in the Big Ten, you got to go get Big Ten kids.
Right.
You can't just live on the West Coast. You gotta expand all the way across the country. And so, with the money, with the brand that Oregon is right now, shout out to Coach Kelly for, really taking it to the next level. Like, yeah, I don't blame them. And I think they're going to be a force. And, the Buckeyes, we got to do what we got to do. We got to take care of business, but we can't lose guys to Oregon. I don't want that and by any means, but I totally get why Oregon's doing it. If you look at the recruiting that they're doing and look at what Michigan's doing, like it's
right.
And I'm just like, ooh, like if I'm another Big Ten school, if I'm Michigan or if I'm Penn State, I'm seeing this like, hey, we gotta wake up. We gotta do something
step up.
here.
Yes.
Yeah, we gotta step up, man.
Yeah, they are pushing hard for Justin Hill. To the point that I think I saw that OSU's sitting in Laurinaitis, Knowles.
Yeah.
Like it's getting to that point now. But because Ryan Day is in a CEO mode now, you can do that. You can send these guys to and we've seen it work.
Yeah.
So it's going to be real interesting. Obviously Dorian Brew, Trey McNutt, you name them, Oregon's coming.
Yeah. And we definitely can't lose. We can't lose on Justin Hill. I didn't mean to cut you off, but we can't. I don't want to lose on any of those guys. We cannot lose that. We can't lose
Justin Hill.
No.
There's actually becoming some momentum that Justin Hill's got a chance to be the number one player in the state, and that includes Tavion St. Clair, who everybody says is going to push to be the number one player in the country.
Yeah. So Justin Hill's the real deal.
So, as far as, obviously Justin Hill is, probably, I would say my number 2 most needed player in this class behind a guy who OSU is making up some major ground with, and that's David Sanders.
Yeah.
This is that recruitment that will get the people off of Coach Fry's back.
Absolutely.
And he can pull this off. And, it's OSU's the one constant so far. Some people tell you it's Georgia. Some people tell you it's Clemson. Some people tell you it's Tennessee. But the one constant is that whoever that second school is, they're in a battle with OSU.
Yeah. David Sanders he's phenomenal. Like he is a player. And, the one thing I've noticed about him, and I've just noticed this so much with all of our recruits, when you listen to them talk, when you listen to them interact with other recruits and you hear the different things about the guys that we are going after, they are all such high character kids. And, I'm not ever going to bash a kid who, may not be the most well-spoken or may not enjoy school the way, like would never do that. Everybody's different.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I would never be upset if Ohio State took a kid who, maybe wasn't the greatest student ever. Like those things happen. Like sometimes you just need an opportunity to get out of wherever it is you're at.
Yep.
So I get that. But the one thing I've noticed is that the David Sanders is one of the most well-spoken recruits that we've come across in such a long time. And I love that. I love that we're trying to get these high academic kids to come in here because it's so vital to, in my opinion, in recruiting parents. If the parents see like we are getting these guys who have 3.5, 3.6, 3.8 GPAs, high ACT scores, and they're doing all these different things, the parents feel more comfortable sending their kid there because they know they're going to be surrounded by people who are goal driven, who want to be successful, not just on the field, but in life. And so I think this is such a good job when it comes to recruiting the parents. And I think David Sanders represents everything. It's like that Paris Johnson type kid, that everything that you want in an offensive lineman, everything you want in a future leader of the program. And so if we could get him, it'd be nice to get some people off of Coach Fry's back. I know he's been going through the ringer the last 2 years, but David Sanders is the real freaking deal, man. So it'd be nice to pick him up for sure.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, that one's probably going to go down for a while. The running back group. This one's getting kind of interesting. There's a lot of smoke out there that Jordan Davison's a silent commit, which in a week where Bijan Robinson finally confirmed what we all knew, and that was that he had silently committed. I don't really care about a silent commitment.
Nope.
Now, I do know there are times the coaches ask you to not make it public for a reason.
Yeah.
I don't think this is one of those, unless you're worried about, Bo Jackson.
Yeah.
So, depending on where you listen right now, there's two schools of thought. One of them still has Bo Jackson in, but there's a whole lot of Georgia and Alabama smoke.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if he doesn't want to be part of a multi-back class.
Yeah.
And I get that, it's a premier position. There's one of you on the field 90% of the time. There are also a lot of people who think Bo Jackson ends up playing linebacker at some point.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder if OSU has planted that seed too. Who knows?
Yeah.
There's a lot of Ohio State fans freaking out about losing Bo Jackson because then you've essentially lost the two Ohio kids that everybody wanted.
Yeah.
But you hit on Coach Locklyn in the net.
Yeah.
Isaiah West is about to be a Buckeye. It sounds like it's as done can be.
Yeah.
So if Davison's committed, you get Isaiah West, then, you look at a kid like Shakai Mills-Knight or, there's still a chance that Bo Jackson's in.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of seeing how the dominoes fall. I mean, as a bigger back like that, Georgia and Alabama use those guys to a T.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But this is a situation where Coach Locke, I think, will be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I am not. Listen, Bo Jackson is an absolute dog. Like, I want that guy in this class. You want to keep the Ohio kids home. We'd said that. Like, that is so, so paramount. In years past, I would be concerned about this because based on what some of the things we saw Coach Alford do when we lost out on our top guys, we didn't really know where to go after that. Obviously last year we ended up, with Sam Dixon or SWD and James Peoples, who I think are both going to be really good backs. But, I think this is a situation where Coach Locke has done such a good job of expanding that net and really going after guys, that may be overlooked a little bit, but have those elite traits. And so, like, if we miss out on Bo Jackson, does it suck? Yes. Does it hurt us when it comes to keeping our homegrown guys here? Absolutely. You're talking 2 years in a row where the top three running backs all went to other schools other than Ohio State that were in Ohio, with Jordan Marshall down with Cincinnati Moeller and Marquise Davis and Bo Jackson if we lose out on him. So I totally get that. And I want to keep those Ohio guys home. But I also think that Coach Locke and the Buckeyes have really put together, like you said earlier, a plan to go get guys who want to be Buckeyes, And so this is a situation where I am not as concerned as I would be. Do I want Bo Jackson in this class? Yes. Would I put him at linebacker? The defensive coach in me? Heck yeah, I would. But I don't think that's what we do. I think he's a stud in the backfield, and he's that type of big back that we need. But you hit it on the nail on the head, too, with Georgia and Alabama. He fits their profile of running back to a T, especially at Georgia. And so I get the allure of wanting to go to a place like that. I totally get that. So I'm not super concerned about the running back recruiting. Obviously, I want to get one of those Ohio guys, but there are other guys in Ohio too that are good. Like I've brought up his name a few times. Nino Hill's a real deal at Kent McKinley. He's really good. And so like Coach Locke, he already announced that he's going on an official visit, in a couple weeks in June. And so like Coach Locke's done a great job, man. And I'm not super concerned about, the running back position. Would like to keep Bo. I would like to get Bo, but we'll see. And like you said, with the silent commit too, if that's true with Jordan Davidson's a dog, and I let's bring him here. Let's have him ball out. But that means nothing. You know what I mean? He's on the West Coast. Like hopefully we can get him. So we'll see. But yeah, having a multi-back class is different. And I think a lot of the players are still they're going to wait and see how this year goes with Travion and Quinshawn. How's it work with multi-running backs and Chip Kelly's system? How are the Buckeyes going to handle that? Because if it looks like one of the backs is upset or one of the backs isn't getting enough love or getting enough carries, like that's going to hurt recruiting. And so I think it's almost one of those situations where the Buckeyes are doing a great job of saying, hey, we're bringing in multiple backs, and the recruits are doing their due diligence and saying, we're going to sit and wait and see and how this shakes out. So it'll all be interesting, but I trust Coach Locke and Coach Day for sure.
Yeah. Now one Ohio kid that, I felt like is in the class forever. And now Berm has them out is Trey McNutt.
Yeah.
That one would sting a little bit. I mean, his dad, should have won the Heisman while he was here.
Yeah.
But, I think at the end of the day, I think he ends up at Ohio State. I really do. I think it may be a situation where you're adding some suspense, some intrigue, kind of like what I feel like Dorian Brew's doing.
Yeah.
I just think, and again, though, I mean, Trey McNutt's a stud, a bona fide stud. But you look at what Ohio State already has committed at safety. You look at what Ohio State's still recruiting at safety. I get it. Like, there's only so much to go around. So, again, I'm never going to fault a kid for doing what they feel best for themselves. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
And then the last note I've got jotted down here on the national scale, 5-star DeCorian Moore, wide receiver, finally decommits from LSU. It's been rumored forever. He basically said, I'm shutting my recruitment down after decommitting. He's got a final 3, and these are the only 3 schools he's talking to of OSU, Texas, and Oregon.
Yeah.
Go figure, OSU and Oregon.
Yeah.
Immediately after he decommitted, 3 crystal balls came in for Texas. Texas is considered to be the slight favorite, but everybody nationally is saying you absolutely cannot count out Coach Hartline.
Yeah, you can't. And that's, that's something that can't be overstated. Like we cannot count out Coach Hartline, number one. And number two, if we miss on him, if we don't get him, he's still Coach Hartline. You look at the 22 class, and I know that those guys have left, and everybody but Kojo is gone. But if you look at the rankings for those kids that he brought in that 22 class, they were all studs. They just walked into a situation that the guys that were here before them and then the guys that came after them were generational talent. And so that's another position. Like I'm not extremely worried if we don't get DeCorian Moore. Do I want him? Heck yes. He's a freaking monster. Yeah. But I trust the fact that Coach Hartline is going to go identify kids who fit well within what we were going to do. And then you look at who we have coming in the 26th class and Chris, like there's just, I'm not worried about that. And so I think it's important that Buckeye fans do not lose sight of that. Can never count out Coach Hartline. And even if we don't get DeCorian, even though we all want him, if we don't get him, we're still going to be fine in that room. So,
yeah, it was pretty cool to see. Wilfong came out, I think, on Friday, and his quote was, Ohio State is single-handedly holding up the wide receiver market in 2025. DeCorian Moore, Jamie French, and Vernell Brown are kind of the top tier. But there's an entire second tier of guys who are waiting to see what happens with those three because they would take an Ohio State spot.
Yeah.
Quincy Porter, Talon Taylor, Phillip Bell, and Dalen McCutcheon.
Yeah.
That entire second tier are all waiting to commit anywhere until they see what happens at Ohio State.
They are all studs. Phillip Bell, stud. McCutcheon, stud. Like they're all so talented. So that's another situation. Yeah. Do we want those elite guys? Heck yes. Let's make it happen. I trust Coach Hartline to go make it happen. But if he doesn't, I do trust that he's going to go identify the right guys to get in that class for sure.
For sure. So yeah, that's kind of a recruiting update. I mean, kind of a slow time in recruiting. We got some officials starting here next week, so maybe start seeing some commits pop. Other football related news this week. The NFL schedule came out.
Yep.
Obviously we're not going to go, making predictions yet. We'll do that when it gets closer. There's way too many variables: injuries, trades, retirements. Who knows? Andrew Luck retired like 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
The Brownies, though, it's no secret we're both Browns fans. Based on winning percentage from last year of opponents, toughest schedule in the league.
Yeah.
The other thing I thought was interesting, the Ravens and Steelers are second and third. So it's just one of those years where that conference cross hit them. I mean,
yeah, it did.
Because then I think if you look at the bottom three, I think it's like the Saints, the Panthers, and the Falcons or something, NFC South teams. So their cross is much easier. Brownies got 4 primetime games. So that's tied for third most.
Yeah.
I don't think there were any foreign, any overseas games. They didn't get the Brazil game. I haven't really dove into it to see. I know we start with Dallas and Tom Brady's commentating debut.
Yeah, I know. That'll be interesting for sure.
Biggest thing that stood out to me as far as a single team's actual schedule, not game times or anything. Who did the Pittsburgh Steelers make angry?
Yeah.
Their last 8 games: Bengals twice.
Oh gosh.
Browns twice. Ravens twice. Chiefs, Eagles.
Yeah. Dude, it's nuts. It's, you know what? Coach Tomlin deserves this. He just wins all the time. And it frustrates me to no end. I respect him more than any coach in the NFL. And so, I'm sitting here looking at the schedule and I'm like, dude, yeah, they made somebody mad and this is awful. But then I sat back and I'm like, it's freaking Mike Tomlin. He will find a way, regardless of how the quarterback play is, he'll find a way to win 10 or 11 games and he'll just go under the freaking radar. And it makes me so mad. But this schedule, it is brutal. It is brutal. I mean, gosh. And the good thing is they're going into it without, what the heck was his name? The quarterback from last year from Pittsburgh.
Oh, Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett. The good thing is they're going in it with Russ and Justin. So, they're in a little better situation quarterback-wise this year.
It's just wild, though. I mean, you think about it. Say TJ Watt or your say Russ is balling out. You're getting, Seattle Russ, and one of those dudes gets hurt in like week 11.
Yeah.
Your whole season has the potential to just go.
It does, man.
Because the front part of their schedule is not bad.
Yeah.
But obviously as season gets closer, we'll dive in and we'll do conference winners and division winners and stuff. Couple other little things. The Jets, 6 primetime games. So let's just say QB1 tears his Achilles week 1 on Monday Night Football. We're right back where we were last year, watching a bunch of Jets games on primetime and watching them suck it up.
Brutal.
San Francisco and Dallas also have 6, and I get that.
Yeah.
San Francisco, get the coin flip right, and you might win the Super Bowl.
You might, yeah.
Dallas, ratings. I mean, everyone wants to see if Dak's going to Dak or if Dak's going to be what he was last year.
Hey, they brought Zeke back, so I'll watch him.
Oh yeah,
I'll watch him because Zeke is back.
And then Houston only has 4 primetime games. I kind of thought with them kind of being America's sweetheart last year,
yeah,
you might see some more, CJ Stroud. But so yeah, I mean that's just kind of the takeaways there. I know you said you haven't looked real hard at it, but anything that you've seen jump out to you that excites you?
I was pretty excited when I saw that the Browns start the season with the Cowboys. I love when the Browns are in those like big stakes games, those primetime games. Obviously, this is at 4:25, so it's not in the evening. But I would like to see. Here's the thing: I would like to see Deshaun Watson start out on a great note, and I know people feel however they want to feel about him. I totally understand it and I get it. I just look at it from a straight football perspective. This is a make or break year for him. He's got to come through. He's got to come through. And I get it. Like the injury that he had is, gosh, I mean, that shoulder injury, I've never even heard of anything like that. And so, he play well, against the Ravens and has he shown flashes? Heck yes. He's shown like, yeah, I can be that Deshaun from Houston, but he's obviously not shown enough. And so will he be who we want him or need him to be this year? That is the biggest thing, because if he's not, I'm sorry, I'm rocking with Jameis Winston and we're gonna it's just one of those situations, man. Like I want to see him perform in these monster games because I think the Browns have done such a good job of building that roster defensively, retaining Coach Schwartz. I think Coach Stefanski's done a phenomenal job, regardless of whatever people think about him. I think he is our coach, and he needs to be our coach for the foreseeable future. The quarterback spot, the quarterback position is going to make or break us. We cannot waste another year of this very talented defense. We cannot do it, and so the quarterback spot, Deshaun, we need you to step up in a major way this year.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's ultimately all on him. I mean,
yeah,
even saying, you don't get Nick Chubb back right away, you can still, you're fine.
Yeah.
I mean, but you have to get good Deshaun.
Yep.
So that'll be interesting, like I said, as we get closer to the season, get through training camp cuts and stuff like that. We'll really dive more into the NFL stuff. But yeah, I mean, on the sports front, I think that pretty much wraps us up. One little side note, always cool to see LeBron doing LeBron things and, just randomly showing up at a Cavs game, sitting courtside for one of two reasons.
Randomly.
He's either watching to see if he can play with Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Or if he wants Darius Garland or Jared Allen in LA. LeBron is the most calculating dude out there. And his bottle of wine, carrying his own wine. Like, how much of a baller do you have to be to just carry a bottle of wine courtside with you?
The guy, he could do whatever he wants. Hey, talking about basketball, I've watched more WNBA preseason and now regular season games than I've ever watched. People who are upset with Caitlin Clark, listen, the Fever have had the number 1 pick 2 years in a row for a reason. They're not that good. All right. So you got to give them time. But there was something that popped up after the Indiana Fever New York Liberty game. It got brought up to Breanna Stewart. That game alone, the Liberty generated $2 million worth of revenue in that game.
That's
and
awesome.
So to me, Caitlin Clark is going to be that polarizing player that is very similar to LeBron. There's going to be people who love him or love her and they'll ride with her and they'll follow her to the promised land. There's going to be people that just hate on every little thing that she does, just like LeBron. but you cannot deny the fact of the impact that she has already made right now. And then for a market like New York City to be able to generate that much revenue in one game, like even Breanna Stewart, who's one of the best players in the NBA or WNBA, flat out said, like, listen, like it's phenomenal what she's able to bring and the fan base that she's brought. And so we want to make sure that we, as the other athletes, are holding up our end of the bargain too. Like, all right, I know you came here to see Caitlin Clark, but I'm out here balling too, so you're going to watch me as well. So I love the fact that there are more eyes on women's sports right now, and I think it's phenomenal. So I wanted to say something about that because that's so important. So regardless of how you feel about Caitlin Clark, she's doing some phenomenal things, and not just her. The Angel Reese's, the Cameron Brinks, the other studs that came in this year are doing some phenomenal things for women's basketball as a whole. And so make sure you guys are tuning in and watch because it is fun. I don't care what you say. Like I am enjoying watching this. I know my dad is as well. So shout out to Caitlin Clark. Shout out to the WNBA, man. I think they're doing a great job of really riding this wave and as they should. And so hopefully it keeps up and hopefully it remains.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I've said before, I got nothing but love for Caitlin Clark on what she has done for the women's game. Is she my favorite player? No. So watching Sabrina put her on skates the other night was
that was bad. That was bad.
But I think it's just no offense to college basketball, but when you look at the Angel Reese's, Cameron Brinks, they're all posts. So Caitlin Clark never had to be defended or defend somebody equally as talented on the offensive side of the ball, i.e. Sabrina Ionescu.
Yeah.
So there's going to be an acclimation. And you look at like what Cameron Brink's doing. Cameron Brink is balling.
Yeah.
And I also think you're seeing something cool with her and Angel Reese both. Just like with the NFL, with the NBA, everybody's all about like, hey, what's Joe Burrow wearing when he shows up to the stadium?
Yeah.
Cameron Brink and Angel Reese could both be models.
Yeah, they could.
And so you're seeing not just the basketball side of it, but culture.
Yeah.
Really exploding with the WNBA.
Yeah. It's so
and
cool,
it's only going to get more. You're going to have Haley Van Lith next year.
Yeah.
Potentially Haley Cavender.
Yeah.
Obviously the other Hannah Cavender's not going to the WNBA. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But Haley could play.
Yeah. You got Paige. You got Paige Beckers.
Well, that's a given.
Yeah.
Paige is America's sweetheart.
Yeah, she is.
You've got I just lost. Oh, you've got Juju.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be bananas. The WNBA is about to blow up.
Yeah.
Just out of the expansion team.
Yep.
And I wouldn't be surprised to see a second one.
Yeah.
Because I can't think of the girl's name. She's like the 13th pick in the draft and got cut.
Yeah.
Because, there's just nowhere for her to go.
I know. It's crazy.
So, yeah.
Crazy.
Awesome shout out to WNBA. Mount Rushmore today.
Yeah.
This one could get a little controversial.
It could.
We're going to go Mount Rushmore of rappers.
In honor of the Drake and Kendrick beef.
Yes. I've got 4 written down, and I'm going to actually change one of them out on the fly.
All right.
I'm taking Common off my list.
Okay. All right. Common's real deal, though.
Common's legit. Hell of an actor, too.
Yeah.
So we're going to get the easy 3 out the way. Mind you, I'm an old head.
Yeah.
So, in no order. Actually, no, we're going to put them in order. Number 1, Tupac Shakur.
Okay. All right.
To me, like, I listen to every type of music possible, man. My playlists go from Slipknot to Tupac to Garth Brooks. So for me, it's all about the message.
The way it should be. It's the way it should be.
And Tupac was so far ahead of his time with the messages that he brought.
He was.
He's the type of dude then I'm going to go as far as to say if he were still around in the last, let's say, 8 years, with a lot of the crap we've seen go on in the world, like that's the type of dude that could have changed things.
For sure.
So I'm going to put Tupac at 1. At 2, I got to go with Marshall Mathers himself.
Yeah.
Eminem on the entertainment side, he doesn't really bring the message like Tupac.
Yeah.
But, he flows so well.
Yeah.
He's entertaining as can be.
Yeah.
And he can go from studio rapper to I'm going to murder you on a diss track.
Yeah.
B Rabbit was literally Eminem.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how talented he is.
Yeah.
Number 3, a guy I may not agree with a lot of his politics anymore, and I think he's kind of gone out there a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he's still crazy talented, and that's Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Again, diverse, flows great. And like I said, I originally had Common 4th, but I think I'm going to take Common off, and I've got to put Biggie on there.
Yeah.
Again, the Biggie Tupac beef kind of set this. That was the first, one of the first massive beefs.
Yeah.
Biggie wasn't as smooth as Pac all the time, but he could go when he needed to go.
Yeah.
So that's my 4.
That's a good list. When it comes to the stuff, like it's really tough because a lot of it comes down to personal preference, obviously.
For sure.
But my wife will tell you that I consider myself like LeBron, a hip hop historian. And I love rap music. I love all music. I'll listen to anything. One of my favorite songs right now is that Tommy Richmond guy, $1 Million Baby. I could listen to that song all day, every day. So and then the bar song Tipsy by Shabuzi or whatever it is. I love that song right now. But when it comes to rap music though, I am very in particular. I will never be shy about my love for Lil Wayne. I think he is great. So I personally, when it comes to ranking, it's hard for me to do a list, as far as ranking them top to bottom. So I'm just going to pick my favorite 4. I am not including Biggie and Tupac on my list. I love Tupac. I think Tupac was phenomenal. I wasn't old enough to really understand. I was in 5th grade when all that stuff was going down. And so, my sister, diehard Biggie fan, diehard Tupac fan, like that. I remember she was extremely sad, when they both lost their lives. So I don't include them in mine. Doesn't mean they're not great. I think they're great. I think they're 2 of the greatest of all time. I do believe that, but I can't. If I had to pick between the 2, I'd probably go Biggie because I love conscious rappers who rap about real stuff. But I think it's so cool when guys put together words that shouldn't go together and they make it work somehow. And I think Biggie
Welch
did more
is great.
of that. Yeah, exactly. So I think Biggie did more of that. So my order, my list would include my favorite rapper of all time. Number 1 is Lil Wayne. I think when I really got into rap music, it was my freshman year of college, and it all started with the Carter 2. I was a big fan of everything that Lil Wayne and Cash Money and the Hot Boys did before that. But when the Carter 2 came out, that was just to me it was the perfect album. Then obviously went on Carter 3, Carter 4, all of his mixtapes. There's never gonna be another rapper that works as hard as him, that pumped out as much music as he's done over the years, to the point where it's like, dude, take a break, go away so we don't need to listen to you for a little bit, and then come back and everybody will be like, oh man, he's so great, So number 1 for me would be Lil Wayne. Number 2, and this is because he reminds me of, I felt like I could relate to where this guy was mentally, and this is Kendrick Lamar. So Kendrick Lamar, he's not missed on any album. He's not missed, from Overly Dedicated to Section 80 to Good Kid, Mad City to Pimper Butterfly to Mr. Morale. He can give you every little detail of songs and where you have to think critically. He can obviously showed with the Drake beef that he can just rap about some crazy outlandish stuff.
He can go.
He showed a different side of him. So Kendrick would be up there. Like him and Wayne for me are like 1A and 1B. So yeah, those would be my top two. Number 3 would be Jay-Z. And Jay-Z is just because of his longevity, my brother was diehard Jay-Z fan. So whenever I was hanging out with my brother, that's all we listened to all the time. And so like you go back to Reasonable Doubt, I was way too young to be listening to that, but I just remember listening to it with my brother and like, oh wow, okay, this Jay-Z guy is he's pretty good. And so from Reasonable Doubt all the way up until 444, like I just think he's just so talented. The Black album is probably my favorite album when he was like announcing his retirement. I think you just saw the different sides of him. You could make a club banger, you can make an introspective song, you could make a song about girls, you could do all these different things. And it was just like, to me, that was like a perfect album. So Jay-Z would be number 3. And this one's tough for me. Like I want to put Eminem here, but I think I'm going to have to put Kanye West as my 4th one. Kanye is he's a different cat, and I understand that. But I think what Kanye did, and it's very similar to what Kendrick Lamar did for me as well. Kanye came in like not wearing the baggy clothes, not doing all those different things. He was just him. He had his collar popped on his polos, and I remember
Dropout Kanye, man.
College Dropout, phenomenal. Late graduation, or late registration. I mean, oh my gosh, phenomenal albums. And I remember when Kanye first came out, for me, from a cultural standpoint, I feel like I fit in now standpoint, that was phenomenal. Phenomenal stuff that he did culturally for rap music for kids that felt the way that I did growing up. It was just so good. Dark Twisted Fantasy, it's one of the greatest albums of all time. That, it's crazy. Some of the album cover weird, all that stuff, but the album itself, one of the greatest albums of all time. So Kanye would be my 4th. Yes, I feel good about those 4. Yeah, I feel good. Drake would be up there for me too. I've followed him for a while, but I can't at this time. I cannot include him in my list. So I would put Kanye up there at number 4 for me. So yeah, that would be my Mount Rushmore. Guys like Nas, I don't include Nas, I don't include Biggie, I don't include Tupac, just because those guys are given. They're top 5 rappers of all time. Jay-Z, I only include him because I kind of grew up with him. So, but yeah, those would be my 4 for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's what's cool about it. You can almost see where I am a little bit older. You know, my list gravitates toward that. And, and you look at guys like Jeezy. Jeezy is so underrated though. I mean,
good.
And if you ask me my favorite rap tracks of all time, I don't know that a song by any of my 4 would be on there.
Yeah.
Because I more of that club type stuff. The Welcome to Atlanta remix is one of my favorite tracks ever though.
Great song. Great song.
Anything by the Big Timers to just listen to,
Big Timers. Dude,
if we don't get a Cash Money halftime show at the Super Bowl in New Orleans,
I will be so mad if we do not get a Cash Money halftime performance. The Hot Boys are coming back together. Juvenile just announced it yesterday on his Instagram. They've got to make it. It has to happen. If it doesn't happen, I don't know if I'll be able to watch the Super Bowl. I will be so distraught.
I'm with you.
I will be so distraught.
Inside, I've got a guy who's pretty connected on a lot of things NFL, and he tells me it's happening. But
it better.
We will see.
Yeah.
So speaking of Juvenile, real quick before we get out of here, it must have been yesterday. On my Facebook memories, it was when they were during COVID. when they were doing like the battles, and it was like Juvenile
versus,
and Luda or somebody.
yeah.
And I'm like, I think I made the comment, kids these days will never know how good rap was at that point. Like,
yeah, man.
But
so much fun.
Cool.
Nelly was on the shop, LeBron's whatever the podcast is. And he talked about his era of hip hop, the early 2000s. And he talked about how that was the most competitive time in rap music. He said you had Jay-Z, who was at his peak. You had Ludacris, who was at his peak. You had T.I. You had Lil Wayne. You had Nelly. You had Jeezy, who had just come out. You had Kanye. And like you had 50 Cent. Like 50 Cent at that time was like
we never even mentioned 50.
I know. And it's like, that time, that early 2000s, like when I was in high school, hip hop was like booming. I remember when Get Rich or Die Trying came out, which is probably my favorite album of all time.
Yes.
When that album came out, it took over the school. Rest in peace, Coach Cackler. We were listening to it in his class, and it was not an edited version. And he just randomly comes over, and he was like, well, I'm going to have to tell you guys to turn that stuff off, but this 50 Cent guy's not that bad. And I was like, Coach Cackler, you know what's up, man. So, yeah, when that came out, that was special. That was special.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, and, real quick, like you hit on Kanye and culture. Kanye took what Jay-Z started with Reebok and made it legit.
For sure.
From the Red Octobers with Nike to the whole Yeezy line with Adidas. Like, it didn't matter if you listened to a single Kanye song, you knew who he was for one reason or another. Yep. And that's what so much of it's about, man. Like, just culture, community,
Yep.
So I'm with you there. Well, yeah, that is all I've got. What about yourself?
All good, man. That's all I got.
All right. Well, for this week, I think I want to shout out the class of 2024.
Yeah.
We had Harding, Elgin, Ridgedale graduating today. We still got Pleasant and RV on deck, but shout out class of 24. Go be great.
Yeah, man. I can't top that. That's perfect.
All right. Well, with that said, we will see you guys next week.